In the spring of 1954, two psychologists at McGill University, James Olds and Peter Milner, performed an experiment that accidentally mapped the topography of the human hell. They were attempting to study the brain's alertness systems, but through a minor surgical error. They placed an electrode directly into a tiny, primitive cluster of neurons in a rat's brain, the nucleus accumbens, the pleasure center. The setup was simple. Every time the rat pressed a metal lever inside its cage, the electrode delivered a microscopic electrical pulse directly into this neural cluster. A pure, unadulterated burst of artificial reward. What followed horrified the researchers. The rat stopped eating. It stopped drinking. It ignored potential mates. It became entirely blind to the world around it. The creature began pressing the lever up to 7,000 times every single hour. It would press the lever until its paws were bleeding. It would press it until its muscles collapsed from sheer starvation. It would press it until it lay dead on the cold metal floor of its cage. It was not searching for sustenance. It was not even experiencing joy. It was trapped in an infinite, self-destructive loop of craving a signal. Welcome to 2026. Look out your window. Look at your desk. Look at the reflection on your screen right now. You are that rat. We live in a civilization that has successfully industrialized the dopamine lever. Every single application on your phone, every algorithmic feed, every notification chime is a microelectrode engineered by the most expensive minds on Earth to rewire your neural pathways. You are bathed in microsecond-level, instant feedback loops. Your brain has been conditioned to expect a reward signal for every single twitch of your finger. And then, with that exact same algorithmically compromised, feedback-addicted brain, you decide to stand up on New Year's Eve and announce a massive, grueling, long-term life goal. I am going to master a foreign language this year. I am going to build a bootstrapped startup from my bedroom. I am going to get into elite physical condition. And what happens? You buy the books. You download the apps. You run on pure, unadulterated hype for exactly 3 days. You grit your teeth, you clench your fists, and you tell yourself you are going to force it through sheer willpower. By day 4, the excitement evaporates. By week 2, the habit is dead. And by month 1, you are sitting in the wreckage of another abandoned ambition, drowning in an ocean of internal guilt, looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I so weak? Why do I always default to a 3-minute attention span? Today, we stop the guilt trip. Today, we look at the cold, hard mathematics of your brain. Because the truth is, your failure has absolutely nothing to do with your character and everything to do with your cognitive architecture. You are trying to fight an industrial-grade psychological war with a stick. Let's tear down the myth of willpower and learn how to engineer actual, effortless execution. Let's dismantle the single most toxic lie perpetuated by the self-help industry, the cult of pure willpower. Society loves the narrative of the hardcore stoic. We love the myth of the individual who can simply look at a painful, grueling task, declare war on their own biology, and white-knuckle their way to success through sheer, brutal self-flagellation. We treat willpower like a moral muscle. If you quit, it's simply because you didn't want it badly enough. This is not just bad philosophy. It is objectively fraudulent neuroscience. In behavioral psychology, there is a fundamental concept known as ego depletion, pioneered by Dr. Roy Baumeister. It reveals a simple, uncomfortable truth. Your willpower is not an infinite spiritual wellspring. It is a highly volatile, strictly limited biological resource. It is an internal battery ran entirely by the metabolic energy of your prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain responsible for executive decision-making, emotional regulation, and impulse control. Think about how your actual day unfolds. You wake up, and your cognitive bandwidth is fully charged. But then the drain begins. You have to drag yourself out of bed when you're exhausted, minus 10%. You have to read a passive-aggressive email from your manager and consciously restrain yourself from typing what you actually think, minus 15%. You sit in traffic and force your nervous system to stay calm while someone cuts you off, minus 10%. You go to lunch and force yourself to order a dry salad instead of the cheeseburger your evolutionary brain is screaming for, minus 20%. By the time you open your front door at 7 p.m., your professional responsibilities have completely strip-mined your prefrontal cortex. Your willpower battery isn't just low, it is blinking red at 2%. And yet you sit on your couch, staring at a textbook or a business plan, and expect this depleted, starving 2% of biological energy to override millions of years of human survival instincts. Your brain looks at the textbook, which promises zero dopamine for the next 6 months, and then looks at your television or your social media feed, which promises an avalanche of instant neurochemical rewards within 3 seconds. What do you think happens? Biology wins every single time. When you attempt to achieve a massive long-term goal using pure, unmediated willpower, you are committing what I call cognitive suicide. You are trying to fly a commercial Boeing 747 across the Atlantic Ocean using a single AA battery. It doesn't matter how noble your intentions are, and it doesn't matter how many motivational videos you watched on your lunch break. You are attempting to violate the physical laws of human cognition. The people who successfully build empires, master skills, and transform their lives are not stronger than you. They are not sitting in their rooms suffering through endless agony, through sheer mental toughness. They aren't willpower martyrs. They are feedback architects. They have realized that instead of fighting a losing battle against their own neurobiology, they must build systems that work with it. To understand why our long-term projects consistently disintegrate, we have to look at the historical environment that sculpted our perception of time. For 99% of human evolutionary history, we lived in what anthropologists call an immediate return environment. When our ancestors felt hunger, they tracked an animal or picked a wild fruit, and they ate immediately. When they felt danger, they ran behind a rock, and the threat vanished immediately. Cause and effect were bound together in a tight, elegant, immediate knot. Our brains were beautifully engineered to survive in the immediate present. But today, we live in a delayed return environment. Think about the architecture of a modern life goal. You decide you want to learn advanced Mandarin or design an AI-driven platform. You sit down on day 1 and study vocabulary for 2 hours or write 50 lines of code. You get up from your desk, look in the mirror, and what do you see? Absolutely nothing. Your life looks exactly the same as it did 2 hours ago. You do it on day 2, you do it on day 10, you do it on day 40, and still, the horizon remains completely empty. This is what I call the desert of delay. It is the dead space between your initial effort and your ultimate reward. And it is precisely where every single one of your dreams goes to die. Because while you are walking through this desert, your modern digital environment is constantly whispering in your ear. The algorithms have trained your brain to expect an instant chemical payout. When you post a photo, you get a like in 4 seconds. When you order food, it arrives at your door in 20 minutes. When you swipe your thumb, your brain receives a fresh injection of novel stimulation every 400 milliseconds. Your neural pathways have been radically rewired to survive on a diet of cheap, high-velocity feedback. So, when you force this feedback-dependent brain to enter the desert of delay, when you demand that it work for months with zero tangible reward signals, the brain perceives this absence of feedback as an existential emergency. It assumes that you are wasting energy on a dead end. It experiences cognitive starvation. Your 3-minute hot and cold cycle, your constant hopping from one passion project to another, is not a personality flaw. It is a biological defense mechanism. Your brain is staging a strike. It is refusing to let you dump its precious, limited metabolic energy into a black hole of delayed gratification. If you want to survive the desert of delay, you cannot simply pray for more stamina. You cannot just hope that you will somehow become a different person. You have to change the geography of the desert itself. You have to learn how to drop breadcrumbs of artificial dopamine along the path so your brain never realizes it's traveling through a wasteland. If you want to break the cycle of self-sabotage, you need to step down as an emotional manager of your life and step up as a cognitive engineer. We need to install 3 hard-hitting behavioral algorithms directly into your daily routine. These are not motivational slogans. They are structural modifications designed to bypass your willpower altogether and exploit your brain's natural craving for feedback. Algorithm 1, the atomic slice and the closed-loop contract. The first mistake you make is defining your daily actions by their final destinations. You tell yourself, "Tonight, I am going to study 2 hours of financial modeling." That statement is a cognitive trap. To a depleted prefrontal cortex at 8 p.m., 2 hours of financial modeling looks like an insurmountable mountain of pain. Your brain will immediately trigger procrastination to protect itself. You must apply the algorithm of atomic slicing. You must shrink the entry barrier of your task until it is so small, so microscopic, that it requires absolutely zero willpower to initiate. Do not contract to study for 2 hours. Contract to open the spreadsheet and fill out exactly 3 cells. Do not contract to write a 2,000-word essay. Contract to write 1 single, solitary sentence. This is the creation of an atomic closed loop. Your brain doesn't fear a 3-cell action because the energetic cost is near zero. But here is the neurochemical secret. Once you sit down, open the file, and complete those 3 cells, your brain records a micro-victory. It receives an unexpected drop of dopamine. The momentum shifts. The friction dissolves. In 85% of cases, once you start, your brain will naturally want to keep going. But you must never demand the continuation. You must only demand the slice. Algorithm 2. The architecture of imposed friction. Stop relying on your internal moral strength to resist temptation. It is a losing strategy. Instead, You must rely on environmental determinism. You must engineer an environment that makes deviation more painful than execution. If you need your willpower to close a social media tab or put your phone in another room, you have already lost the battle. Every time you consciously resist an urge, you drain your prefrontal cortex battery. The goal is to design an environment where temptation is physically or structurally inaccessible. If you need to write code on your computer, use cold turkey blocking software to completely sever your internet access at the root level for 2 hours. If you need to focus in the evening, place your smartphone inside a physical, timed lock safe in your kitchen before you sit at your desk. You must intentionally, artificially increase the friction cost of your bad habits. If your phone is in your pocket, checking it takes 0.5 seconds and zero energy. If your phone is locked inside a timed safe in another room, checking it requires you to stand up, walk down the hall, and wait for a timer, a high-friction sequence that gives your prefrontal cortex time to wake up and interrupt the compulsive loop. Design an environment that forces your success so your mind doesn't have to choose it. Algorithm 3. The visual momentum engine. Remember, your brain is a feedback-starved machine. If it cannot see the progress of its labor, it will stop producing the chemicals required for motivation. To fix this, you must transform your invisible, abstract growth into a tangible, high-contrast physical reality. Get a massive physical calendar and mount it on the wall directly in front of your desk. Do not use a digital app. Digital apps are hidden behind screens, and out of sight is out of mind for a human nervous system. Every single day that you execute your atomic slice, take a thick, bright red marker and draw a massive, aggressive X over that day. Within 1 week, you will see a physical, visual chain of red marks staring back at you. At that moment, your motivation undergoes a profound structural inversion. You are no longer working to achieve a distant, abstract goal 12 months from now. You are working for a hyper-immediate reward to prevent that visual chain from breaking. Your brain looks at that unbroken line of red marks and experiences an immediate, protective instinct over its investment. The momentum becomes externalized. The system begins to pull you forward, transforming you from a desperate willpower martyr into a calm, systematic architect of your own progress. We live in an era that is engaged in a silent, multi-billion-dollar war against the human soul. Every interface you interact with, every device in your palm, is designed to reduce you to an animal state, a fractured creature sitting in a digital cage, endlessly pressing a lever in search of a cheap, immediate neurochemical payout. The modern world wants you to be a consumer of moments. It wants you to be fragmented. It wants you to be hyper-reactive, anxious, and perpetually exhausted. Because a person who cannot control their own attention span is a person who can be effortlessly monetized, predicted, and controlled. When you find yourself falling into the trap of the 3-minute hot and cold cycle, when you find yourself abandoning your highest ideals and sinking back into the numbing comfort of instant gratification, do not punish yourself, and do not believe the lie that you are fundamentally broken. You are simply an ancient biological entity living in an industrial wasteland of weaponized attention. The path to a sovereign life, the path to actual, deep, enduring self-mastery, is not a path of violence. It is not about waking up every morning and whipping yourself into submission. True discipline is not the weapon of a warrior. It is the blueprint of an architect. It is about looking at your own humanity with profound clarity, understanding its limitations, and building a sanctuary of execution around it. It is about having the courage to step away from the screaming noise of the collective lever, to disconnect from the frantic, superficial feedback loops of the crowd, and to learn how to sit in a quiet room, completely undisturbed, with a long-term vision in your heart and a systematic process in your hands. Stop being the slave of the immediate signal. Stop expecting a depleted brain to fight a rigged system through raw agony. Stop whipping the slave in your mind. Start micro-dosing your victories. Turn off your notifications. Close the infinite tabs. Put your phone in another room. And right now, in the quiet gravity of this moment, take your life back from the algorithm. Write down your atomic slice. Build your fortress of friction and start constructing an inner architecture that no digital storm can ever tear down. True freedom is not the absence of boundaries. It is the power to design your own.